Okay. Let me come in here quickly. Sorry, Mark, but let me come in here. I totally understand. You're the director of Public Communications Division of the Foreign Ministry, and you should be able to help the Nigerian people to understand.
But the networks don't agree.
Well, anyway, because sometimes they should speak more often and let people disabuse the minds of people. Sometimes a recall could also mean a summon, a recall in this case.
That's also not interpreted.
Yes, whether it's an invitation, there are different names, but all the same. I was looking at it from the perspective of what we saw with the Australian action in the Indonesian execution matter, the way they passed a strong message. But it would seem as if the government was also on the same page with you, looking at that Nigerians were not the primary target of that particular attack in South Africa. So it wouldn't have been any, I think there wouldn't have been any need for us to summon, even using a recall or summon the ambassador in any case.
The point that the last speaker made is true. The person who occupies the position is not the substantive ambassador. And the technical point in diplomatic terms is that you can only recall an ambassador. So to use the word recall is actually inappropriate in the circumstances because we do not have a substantive, a high commissioner rather, in South Africa. Even if we had a substantive high commissioner in South Africa, in diplomatic terms, recall for consultation is the term used to downplay the severity of the protest, if indeed there is an intention to make one. You simply call the ambassador home for consultation as opposed to just recalling the ambassador, as it were. But it's not applicable in this case because we do not actually have a substantive diplomatic representation in South Africa.
No, I asked that question. I asked that question because there was a reply from the South African government, a very, I don't want to say cheeky, but a very cynical reply from the South African government, something that had the potential to strain relations, possibly if you had read that reply. And then you would also see that it was seen that somebody had done something somewhere that wasn't authorized. And the Nigerian government had tried to clarify that when press people had asked at the Federal Executive Council meeting, and that the permanent secretary, it would seem, had acted without authorization. And it was saying that right now, because he says that we've sent a high-level delegation to South Africa, we're trying to ensure that things do not get out of hand. So hence my question as to whether or not relations were trying to be repaired, or restored. And it was said that the Nigerian government is also overlooking that statement of South Africa in the light of what they perceived to be a recall. Did you get that impression as well?
Well, I really wasn't clear as to what had gone on in relation to the recall and no recall issue. But from my point of view, it wouldn't have been necessary to recall the High Commissioner because the South Africans took very quick, proactive, and very efficient steps in addressing the problem. The President of South Africa actually went to the affected communities and held a meeting with them. So clearly, in diplomatic terms, that would have indicated that they were addressing the problem at the highest levels. In those circumstances, had we even had a substantive High Commissioner in South Africa, it wouldn't have been necessary to recall such a person because the response was swift and was efficient and aggressive.
If then we had to get, say, a representation, because he says that Charles Adeogun-Philips is at home because of the representation before the National Assembly. Right. How then do we get the ambassador to come home, if we had one there, without giving the impression of a recall?
Well, I think it is normal diplomatic business to ask ambassadors to come home for consultations, rather than do it on telephone or by telex or whatever. I think the normal diplomatic balance is that the foreign minister will invite whoever represents us overseas to come home and brief him on what the situation overseas is. And I think that's simply what happened here. The second limb of it, of course, is that the National Assembly, having an oversight function, being legislators, also then requested to be addressed on the issue, which is entirely their right, because they have an oversight function.
All right, well, we'll have Mr. Adeogun back on the line now, and thank you for joining us again. Well, could you just clarify for us, How did we interpret the statement credited to South Africa's Minister of Foreign Affairs spokesperson, where they said that it was regrettable and unfortunate for us to have recalled, even though you say we didn't recall, our envoy to South Africa over this matter?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Good. I didn't quite get your question again.
Well, when that happened, where the word recall went out, South Africa interpreted it saying, well, if we're recalling our ambassador to Nigeria, albeit for consultation, there was a statement credited to their foreign affairs spokesperson saying it was regrettable and unfortunate that we will take advantage of that kind of matter. What was our response or our impression of what they said?
You mean the position of the Minister of Foreign Affairs?
Yes.
I believe we have put all that behind us because the ministry has gone to the National Assembly and spoken interactively, as it were, the Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs, and thereafter with the House Committee on Foreign Affairs, and all these things were clarified.
Okay, now this is at that level, but at the level of those who were affected in this attacks, is there any word about compensating them?
Yes, if you recall, on the 20th of last month, which is April now, the Honorable Minister of State 2 summoned the South African High Commissioner in Abuja here. First, to register Nigeria's protest over the xenophobic attacks, and two, to pass on the same message to his home government, and three, request for a consideration of payment of compensation to the victims of the attacks.
All right, let's flip over to the recent case in Indonesia. We also know that there was a statement which you put out, correct us if we're wrong. So Nigeria's position, is it that we're saying to Indonesia, maybe you should even tell us again, what is our position about the executions that went on affecting Nigerians there?
Our position is that it's regrettable. Regrettable for the simple reason that we had interceded pleas for mercy for commutation to life sentence had been made at the highest levels. Only recently also, the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Wali, was in Indonesia for the commemoration of the Bandung Conference of 1955, that is the 60th anniversary of the Afro-Asian Conference. And on the sidelines of that conference, he met with his Indonesian counterparts and raised the same issues. Two, exactly. One, a plea for mercy for commutation to life sentence of those who were convicted on the part of Nigerians. And two, for us to hasten bringing to fruition the prisoner transfer agreement. But unfortunately, in spite of this intervention, the Indonesian authorities still went ahead to carry out the executions.